Well, it's always good to be with you on a Thursday because it's the kick time, and we've got a pretty special event today. We're going to be talking about WordPress 6.0. Now, if you're not a little bit of a fanboy of this content management system that runs two-thirds of the web, you're going to be in for a bit of a surprise about why it's so important. And of course, we build our websites on WordPress, so we're going to be finding out what Excite Media is going to be doing about this new fantastic version that's just around the corner. But keep in mind, if you're here, it's because Excite Media can make a difference in growing your business through really targeted digital marketing. So whether you need us for your websites, graphic design, or to make sure that the world knows about your services or your products, and we can get a converting website delivering you customers, leads, or inquiries, then make sure that you do touch base with us. We'd love to be able to talk to you. And of course, the easiest way to do that is to flick over to our website at excitemedia.com.au. That's where you can meet the team and find out about all the real people that could be working on your next project. It's amazing. Every time we hear about a successful client, they rattle off 2 or 3 names of the team that have been actively involved in making a difference. We'd love to do the same for you. But this week on The Kick, we are going to talk about that very important topic of what's new in WordPress 6.0. And it's amazing how sometimes you get versions of WordPress. Some of you have been updating your website. Hey, we're up to, what is it, 5.9.7? What's around the corner? Well, today we're going to find out. So, welcoming to the show, our technical lead at Excite Media, the man looking after our support crew. G'day, Andy. How are you? Look at that, we've lost him, and that's because it's my fault. You're back on. Let's have a chat.
Oh,
How you doing?
I'm here. Hello, how are you? I'm doing very well.
Isn't it funny, if you're in any kind of relationship, marriage, partner, or otherwise, the ability to have a mute button may be the most powerful super tool in that relationship, right?
I don't condone that remark, Andrew.
Now, the funny thing is, here we go. We've got pop vinyl heaven happening on The Kick. You're in my office at the studio. That's Star Wars Central. Behind me, we've got Marvel, Doctor Who, and The Lord of the Rings. So there you go. My addiction is starting to populate the earth. Hey,
Bleeding
Andy.
over. Yeah, we've got a full
that was
house here
all-
today, so I've commandeered your office.
Thank you very much. I'll be charging rent. Now, we were talking about WordPress 6.0. You've been following this. Let's have a talk about some of the amazing facts about WordPress. 35% of the web pages in the world are on WordPress. 60 something percent of the websites, because so many small businesses and hobbyists are using WordPress. Downloaded 7.7 million times, available in 196 languages, 50,000 plugins. What is it about WordPress that has been so successful since its launch way back in 2003?
Yeah, look, it is a mainstay of the internet, as you say. It's been creeping up, and now 35% of the entire internet is built with WordPress. Why? It's just such a robust and useful system for businesses of any size. Like when it first started out, it was a blogging platform, and then you could sculpt it to work for a small business. And now, large companies like the New York Times have their blog set up using the WordPress platform. So businesses that get tons and tons of traffic, more than any of us mere mortals would receive for our small businesses. The backbone of their infrastructure is built on the WordPress platform. So it's just so robust, and it does everything that you're going to need. Incidentally, I did read just recently that the last month there, the market share of WordPress against some of the other content management systems has actually fallen back. So for the first time in forever, basically, it's lost 0.4% of its market share. Now, I don't think that's going to be catastrophic for any of us using WordPress, but it just means there's a few more players in the market, perhaps.
And I know that one of the reasons we love WordPress, it's adaptable for our small, medium, and large websites, but it's also great for being able to train our clients how to use their own website and know that there is support and training services right around the world, so they're never left out. You mentioned them losing a few percentage points. I think the nearest is Joomla at about 4%, isn't it? So it's kind of like
the competition are a long way off. But yeah, you see the ads actively. Advertising platforms like Wix and Squarespace, and you can't listen to a podcast without getting a Squarespace ad. So potentially, some of the marketing for those other platforms are, carving out, some market share. But as you say, there's 80% difference between WordPress and the next most popular CMS.
Now coming back to WordPress 6.0, we see these kind of like small changes. It's gone from 4.5 to 4.6. Of late, WordPress has gone from 5.97 to 5.98. But then the big one comes around, these major releases, and we're on WordPress 6.0. What does that actually mean? What are the numbers? Why are they significant?
Look, software is constantly being updated, whether it's a content management system or whether it's your Excel or Office 365 type of platform. All software is going through updates at various times. Now, they don't want to roll them, each time there's a new update, they're not being rolled out as they happen. They sort of get grouped together and released as a patch, once a month, once a quarter, once a year, whatever it is for that particular platform. WordPress did used to stick to a bit of a schedule where they would say, like every quarter we do a semi-major release. But now it's sort of happening when it happens. So when you go from a 5.x to a 6, that is what's called a major release. And quite often there are some very core features that have either been rebuilt or restructured, database restructure, something like that. Some major change has happened to that core. When you go from a 5.8 to a 5.9, often the core is the same, but you'll find new features are being added. And when it's a 5.7.5 to 5.7.6, typically a minor release like that is some bug fixes and general maintenance, but nothing to be concerned about. Even security patches are sometimes applied during those minor releases. But what we're looking at next week is a major release from 5.7 to, is it 5.7? The 5.9, right? 5.9.7, that's correct. To 6. So we're looking at quite a significant update.
Now, you've prepared a slide deck for us. Tell me when to put that up on the screen. But can you give us an overview of what we're expecting? So next week, the 25th of May, we get version 6.0. 2 days later, it's 19 years since WordPress started. So that's quite incredible. But what are we expecting when Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, depending on time zones, rolls around?
Yeah, look, you might as well bring up the slide deck. We'll take a look through some of the features there. So next week is the release of WordPress 6.0, which is kind of the end of the journey of the Gutenberg project. So way back in December 2018, there was the release of WordPress 5.0, which was the introduction of the new block editor. The project's been nicknamed Gutenberg for the Gutenberg press, the first printing press. It's been a long time coming, but the whole idea was, the editor hadn't changed in 15 years much. So this is a new reimagined editor. Was it very, very clunky when it first arrived. Now it's a lot more streamlined and actually pretty useful. But the whole idea of this project when it was first conceived was that not only would you be using the block editor to make changes to the content, but you would actually be able to build your entire website. So your header, your navigation, your each blog template page, your contact page, your footer, all the widgets, everything got tied together into this block editor. And as of next week, we're going to see the culmination of all that work. So since the 5.9 was released, the 2022 theme came, and that was an introduction to what you might be able to do with this block editor in building a theme. But as of next week, essentially the project's officially launched. So with this screenshot, I just wanted to point out there are more than 500 enhancements and over 400 bug fixes being released next week. We won't go through all 500 enhancements today. We don't have that kind of time. But what I've put on the slide here are some of the major or more interesting elements being added. So let's take a look at the first one. Right, so this is full site editing. So with the right theme, you can now use the block editor to build your entire website. So you can see on the left-hand side there, the appearance menu is selected where you can see the themes. Typically, you'd see underneath there, you would see the menus, you'd see widgets, you'd see file editor, all of that sort of thing. But when you activate, this is the 2022 theme, when that's activated, you don't need any of those elements anymore, because everything can now be done through this editor. So if we jump over to the next screen, this is what the editor looks like. This editor, again, it may be a bit blurry, but what you can now do is create templates for every element of the entire website. So here we've got a category template set up. You can create a front page, what your single post looks like, your header, your footer, a 404 page. If someone arrives on a page where, or goes to a link that doesn't work, you can completely customize your 404. So in these instances, it makes it a lot easier to show a different header, a different footer than what you would see on a normal page. In the past, we at Excite Media, we create landing pages for some of our customers. The landing page would be targeted by some paid advertising on Google Ads, for example. And typically a landing page, you want to remove any distraction. So you want to remove the menu. You basically want the person to consume the content in front of them and then land on a call to action. So this new editor will allow you to more easily do all of that sort of stuff without having to actually write code or physically create individual files, which is typically how it would be done in the past. All right, let's have a look at the next one. We got block patterns. Now, this is very exciting to nerds like myself. But basically, using the block editor, you can now save patterns. Pattern seems a bit of a strange name. That's what WordPress have called it. But essentially, it's a group of blocks together. So something that we do a lot at Excite Media is create a call to action that we would then implement at the bottom of each content page. So what this allows you to do is actually create a pattern. So it might be a series of blocks or embedded, a large block with columns inside them and, call to actions button, all of that sort of stuff. You can save that as a pattern. So you can create, save, import, and export patterns of blocks. And you can even download, if you now go to wordpress.org/patterns, there are pre-created patterns that you can implement on your website. So this makes it very easy to set up those things that are going to permeate throughout a website build, a call to action, for example, or about the author, that sort of thing. You set up that pattern and then you implement it across all the pages. And if you set it up correctly, you can change it in one spot and that change will permeate the rest of the website. So very, very powerful. There's been a lot of criticism of what Gutenberg looked like and its functionality and how clunky it was. And in the 3 years since it's launched, it has come a very long way, and now has become suddenly very, very useful. All right, what have I got? Okay, so this is the last screen of my little presentation. I put this together quickly just to sort of show some of the updates that come with this new rollout. So some of the improvements, the featured image on the cover block, at the top of a blog post, you might have a visual, a big image across the top with the text over the top of it. That had to be set up individually or separately from what your blog featured image is. And now they're integrated a lot better. Grouping blocks together, you can actually say, this image and this text and this button are now grouped. And it gives you then styling options for the entire group rather than having to manually push pixels around on a per block basis. The other thing that this is what people really hated when Gutenberg first came out. Every time you wrote a paragraph and hit enter, it would create a new block for the next paragraph. So when you're editing, a sentence at the end of one paragraph and at the start of the next paragraph, they had to be done separately, but now you can sort of drag your mouse across the text. It might go across several blocks and then, make it italic or bold or underlined or make it into a link, whatever that you wanted to do. You can now do that across the blocks. There's a better color selector, better styling for button. You can lock blocks. So once you sort of create that call to action or the block that you want to use on the page, you can now click a button to padlock that block to say, look, this is now done. Don't let anyone edit it. Or the other thing you can lock is its position on the page. Because they're blocks, you can actually drag and drop them around to move things, to change the layout of the page. So if you lock it in position, it can't accidentally be moved around. There's better support for your galleries, photo galleries, to make them look a bit nicer. List view, which when you turn that on, you basically see a list down the left-hand side of all the elements that make up that particular page. And once you see that, it's a lot easier to find what you want to edit, move things around, that sort of thing. You can select multiple blocks at the same time, and new design and layout controls. So adding borders to an individual block, lining up columns, making columns the same size, which has always been a headache, whether you did it in WordPress or in CSS in general. So a lot more support for people like us who are web developers. We have tricks to get around certain elements, but now, we don't need those fancy tricks anymore. The fixes and the integrations have been built into the improvements in the editor. And just some examples of new blocks that have been added. So as I said, you can create an about the author kind of block at the end of a blog post. But this avatar block actually will allow you to display the logged in user's avatar rather than the post, the writer or the author of the post, their avatar. So it helps you create a bit of a members area for your subscribers to log into. So comments, read more, you can group blocks together, business hours, a block specifically for banner ads, integrating podcasts and slideshows, RSS, Google Maps, MailChimp, and even an image compare. This is something I really love, like a before and after. So you've got two images together, and then you can slide between them to see what's changed, on a cleaning business, a car polishing business, something like that. You can show a before and after with a slider between them. So a lot of things that usually would have had to be implemented with an additional plugin, which makes the site more complicated and potentially slows it down. All of these elements are now built into the WordPress core, which makes your site lean and fast and professional. You no longer need to start adding all these additional plugins to achieve a professional looking website.
That's really awesome. Thanks very much, Andy, just giving us that overview. And there's so much to look forward to. I guess one of the questions that affects any time you do software, it doesn't matter whether it's a new version for your Mac or your Windows computer, you're always wondering about when I should upgrade. So we'll cover that in just a moment. Is there any new feature that's your favorite out of what you saw there? Is there something that stands out you're so glad to see it arrive?
Yeah, the block patterns, I think, are actually a really not underrated, because it hasn't been released yet, so people haven't really started to use them. But what I could see when they first started talking about blocks is, if you go to WordPress.org, you can download themes, you can download plugins, and I imagined at some point in time you're going to be able to download customized blocks. But they've gone one step further and allow you to create combinations of blocks. So rather than trying to figure out, how am I going to create a call to action? If you're, an amateur web developer, you've built your own website and you think this call to action thing that makes sense, let's add one. Rather than having to try and build one from scratch, you can just go to wordpress.org/patterns, find a call to action, one that matches what you're really looking for, install it, change your colors, change your image, and all of a sudden you've got a professional looking call to action or section on your website that you didn't have to design from scratch. So that is going to really help people get the most out of their WordPress website. We talk about this a lot, when we do marketing for somebody, or when we're doing SEO or ads, getting traffic to the site is the first step. But then if they're not converting, we really need to do a better job of making sure when someone lands on your page, they're finding what they look for. You know, they search for something, they came through to your website, and if they look at it and go, oh, it's not really what I want, then, you know, you've wasted that ad spend. So what we want to do is make the most professional looking website that fills them with confidence. They look at it and go, okay, I think I can trust these guys. I'll take that next step. I'll make that inquiry, or I'll buy that, whatever it is that's being sold. So it's all about trying to, you know, build a great looking website professionally, filling the customer with confidence that, hey, these are the right guys for, you know, for what I'm looking for. So this patterns thing is going to help a lot of people achieve a more professional looking website. And I guess this is going to be one of the tools that will help this, you know, this 0.4% market share loss. Well, you know, once people start to see, hey, you know, I don't have to build everything from scratch. Look at all these cool patterns I can use.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It's absolutely a game changer.
Here we go. And just to put this in perspective, the website, or the WordPress 6.0, is coming out next week. But already on WordPress.org, you can go here, and somebody has already taken the opportunity, their graphic design skills, their marketing skills, to create these, in essence, like repeatable templates. And I don't know if you can see on your screen, but there's already 29 pages worth of these to select from. So I think you're right. This is a bit of a game changer. Let's have a talk about another couple of things. Whether it is going to be WordPress 7.0 or just waiting for WordPress 6.1, is there any feature that you wish had turned up that hasn't yet?
One of the things that was discussed when this Gutenberg project was announced and launched in 2018, there were 4 steps in the roadmap. So there was the block editor achieved. They launched that with WordPress 5. Now using the block editor to build your entire website, that has now been launched or will be launched next week with WordPress 6.0. There are 2 more elements. So one of them was to build multilingual support into the core. So at the moment, if you wanted to build out a site with different languages, you need an additional plugin and configure it. And the go-to plugin that everyone uses typically comes with a cost. So I guess it's their step to be less, you know, American-centric and say, hey, look, this is a platform for the world. You know, we want to make this available. So that's coming. But the 4th step is make WordPress into a collaborative tool. So oftentimes when content is being added or a web page is being updated, there's more than one person working on that. And the idea would be to create a group of collaboration tools so that, as you know, potentially 2 people completely remotely working on the same content can see, hey, you know, this person logged in yesterday, made these changes to this paragraph. I'll have a read over them. Yeah, they're great. Now I'm going to add my bit, type of thing. So to this day, no one really knows what that looks like, but I think they've had their hands full for the last 3 years, getting Gutenberg to the point where they've fought back against the initial bad reviews as it was released. It's now, as I say, very useful, very a professional solution. Takes a little bit of getting used to, but will do most of what people want. So they've now achieved that, and I think we'll see in the coming, you know, months some announcement on those other 2 features that were part of that original roadmap.
Good to hear. And I guess there's been quite a bit of progression in terms of how people have become used to using Google Docs and Microsoft 365 to be able to do those collaborative documents. So if that comes into the WordPress space, that's going to be great. The big question on everybody's lips, though, is coming back to, when should I upgrade? Now, some people have everything set on automatic. Update WordPress automatically, update my plugins automatically. There's a bit of a danger in that, isn't there? What's the right approach to this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a danger. In the past, when WordPress was far less complicated, I would tell people, look, you know, there's no harm in just hitting the update button. 99 times out of 100 is going to be fine. These days, still, the WordPress core is a lot better at being backwards compatible. So my inkling would be that it would be safe next week to update, but my advice would be hold off. We have a product called Excite Care here at Excite Media, where we take care of our clients' updates for them. And the updates are all done manually. So there's no console where we log in the morning and just press bang, everyone gets updated. Someone physically goes to every single website, clicks those update buttons, checks that everything's okay. If there is any issue, rolls back to the overnight backup and works through it a little bit more carefully. So the advice would be, especially because it's a major release, potentially hold off on hitting that update as soon as it arrives, because what you'll often find is within a few days, there'll be a WordPress 6.0.1 available, which is all the bugs that they found once it was released into the wild, then being fixed. So I'm pretty sure even if your website core is set to automatically update, it won't update from 5 to 6. You will need to do that manually. And if you're not on the Excite Care plan, Andrew's brought up those details there, get in touch with us. We can certainly help out with that. But if you want to take care of it yourself, my advice would be take a backup before you do anything like that, especially when we're talking about a major release like a 5.x to a 6. That's a big one. There's going to be some changes in there, and it's more often than not the WordPress core that's not going to cause the issue. It'll be that outdated theme, the theme that was installed 4 years ago and hasn't been updated, or a plugin that you didn't realize has been abandoned by the developer, so it's no longer receiving those updates. Once everything else moves forward and that thing that you haven't noticed is still back in the the Stone Age a couple of years ago, that's where the surprise pops up and causes the issue. And these days, WordPress has even got better at, in the past, the update might take the entire website down and then you have to get in and look at code to try and fix things. These days, it actually does a much better job of keeping the website up and giving you a warning to say, I wasn't able to complete this. You might need to go in and take a look. But yeah, leave it to the professionals. If it's not your bag, if you just want to run your business, that's why we're here.
You've covered some of the great ones there, and I think just being able to methodically work out which plugin was a problem, that's fundamentally one of the things. And I guess reducing the number of plugins is probably a good maintenance thing that you should do every now and again. It's kind of like spring cleaning your house. You kind of gather all these features and you find you don't use them, so strip it back to what's necessary. Andy, another key thing, one of the things about Gutenberg is it gives us more design control, which is competing with the page builder plugins that have been out for a while. So when people got frustrated with WordPress, couldn't quite design it as good as their desktop publishing system, we started to see products like Divi, Elementor, Beaver Builder, and of late, WP Page Builder. In terms of this new release, is that going to affect those? And Excite Media uses the Elementor plugin to give that kind of functionality. Where are we placed?
Look, none of those plugins will be affected by this update. What will happen is, the WordPress core rolls forward, but everything else, all the plugins, all the theme, everything else should continue to work as per normal. The whole idea, though, was, as you said, adding plugins to a website adds complexity. And, one, more things to go wrong, but two, every plugin adds a new JavaScript file, adds an extra CSS file, adds complexity, which over time can start to slow down a website. So the whole idea of this new block editor is to bring as many of those tools into the core as possible, so you don't need to go ahead and install or spend a few $100s on an editor or whatever it is this plugin potentially not need to spend all that extra money and keep as much of it into the core as possible. In regards to Excite Media and Elementor, absolutely no issues there. We'll continue to use Elementor because we have those patterns that are available there for the WordPress block editor. We've sort of built our library of tried and tested blocks of templates in Elementor. They're called a template. So whether that be a header, a footer, a call to action, blog layouts, all that sort of thing, we have some really great high converting elements that we've built into our Elementor. So likely will continue. And for everyone's website who has been built on Elementor, absolutely no problems whatsoever. If you were to compare the block editor with Elementor, Elementor is still probably a better, more features available. So it would be a step up over the block editor as it is. But again, the whole idea is, for a simple website, or for someone who's, not a web developer, you now, with this release of WordPress 6.0, have more tools at your disposal, and a better option, a better, I guess, chance at building a more professional looking website.
And last question on this topic of what version to use. So we've got new clients coming to Excite Media every week. They're out to build a new website. When do you think that we will start actually utilizing 6.0 as part of our new websites, or will we keep on 5.9.7 for a while?
My guess is every time we install WordPress, it will be the latest version of WordPress. So we won't, once this is released, and within a day or two, we'll know if there are any, issues affecting, a website or a web build. So my guess would be, by the end of next week, any new website that comes through the door will be on WordPress 6. Yeah, the build will still happen on Elementor, and yeah, there's no real issue that I can see. So again, if you have an existing website, I wouldn't be in a rush to update to version 6, especially if you're not using the block editor, because the way things are chugging along nicely at the moment. Let's just hold off and get that first round of bug fixes in. It inevitably happens. They've already done beta testing on this. They think they've got it to the point where they're happy to release it. But once it's released into the wild, there are infinite number of combinations of plugins and outdated plugins and themes and outdated themes. There's all sorts of things that will start to play a part. And a lot of these bug fixes are edge cases that, developers like myself wouldn't have even thought possible. And then people start reporting, hey, here's an error. And when they get to the bottom of it, it's like, oh, okay, I can see how that's an issue. We better build that into the core in case someone else has the same.
So probably some good advice if you're watching the Kick today. If you've got a WordPress website that is basically like a hobby website or something that's just personal and it's not business important, hey, you can probably upgrade in the first few days after its release. But maybe if you've got a business, put it out a couple of weeks. What's going to happen is that when you go to upgrade, you may find that it's not version 6 you're upgrading to, but 6.0.3, because there's been a couple of little changes. And that's not going to be a problem. You'll be upgrading straight to the latest one that's taking care of those things. So if it's business critical, maybe wait a couple of weeks. You're not losing anything. Hey, Andy, it's been really great to have you on board. And I just wanted to talk about something else that we both know is just around the corner. We're hearing about GA4. It sounds like it's a new droid from the next Star Wars movie. But tell us, GA4, and can we look forward to getting you back to talk about it?
Absolutely. I can come back and talk about it. It would be my pleasure. So GA4 is the new version of Google Analytics, and it's sort of snuck up on us a little bit. So Google Analytics has been around a very long time, back in the time when we used to have web pages with a little JavaScript counter on it. And every time you hit refresh, the counter would go up. Every time the page was viewed, you'd have a little count going along. The internet has changed vastly since then. Analytics, Google Analytics, and Universal Analytics, as it's sometimes called, has been sort of smushed into various, used in various ways that it was never intended to use. So the whole idea of this Google Analytics 4 is a rebuild completely from scratch of how Google Analytics tracks hits to the websites. The other thing that's happened recently is all of these new privacy laws around the world. So Europe has one, the GDPR. California the state of California has a really strong privacy law around what you can and can't track when people come to your website. So at the moment, there's disparate laws, and there's various things that you have to try and take into account. We get asked the question, almost daily, should I have one of those pop-ups to say, this website uses cookies, please allow, that sort of thing. You can create that pop-up easy enough, but if someone says no, you then have to stop tracking them, and you actually need to be able to remove the data that you tracked up until that point. So I guess the main concern people are having is, like, if we have to, forget people that have been visiting our website, how are we going to accurately track trends and, is this landing page converting better, that sort of thing. So GA4 has actually been built with machine learning. So taking into account, you won't be able to track every action on your website for various reasons. It will help you determine, whether your content is achieving the goals or converting in the way that you want. The issue is it doesn't seem to be easy to set up. So you can set up the tracking pixel easy enough, but then, it isn't actually tracking until you tell it what to track. So it looks like there's going to be a fair bit of setup, and we're now doing a deep dive into what that looks like. The reason we're doing that deep dive is Google Analytics 3 or Universal Analytics will actually stop working on June 30 next year. But for all of our customers, who want to do year-on-year reporting, like how did this May compare to May last year, we're going to need to have Google Analytics 4 set up by June 30 this year so that we can do those year-on-year comparisons. So we're well down the track of investigating this and making sure that we're going to have it all set up for all of our customers. But yeah, there's certainly a lot to talk about, and I'd be more than happy to come back and bring that knowledge.
That'll be brilliant. Really look forward to it. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons that you can't ignore this Google Analytics situation. We're used to just installing it and it tracked everything. Now it's swung the other direction, and you do need some guidance, and that's where the Excite Media team can come in. Andy, we'll get you back next time for another edition of The Kick, where we talk about GA4 and what we've discovered along the way. Thanks, mate.
No problem at all.
Always good to be able to get the knowledge from right at the front line. Andy looks after our support team. One of the benefits of working with Excite Media is that you have a support team looking after you, able to respond, whether it's technical issues, changes of the website, or a little thing called WordPress 6.0. Would you believe that over 70 million new posts and 77 million new comments arrive on WordPress websites every month? And just putting a little bit of context on that as well, how about this? One of the heads of Google's team, Matt Cutts, he's been involved with the SEO for many years at Google. He said that WordPress takes care of 80 to 90% of Google's crawling issues. So it's basically saying WordPress is healthy and good for your website. Great to know. All right, well, it's been great to have you on another edition of The Kick. Thanks very much for joining us. We're going to be back next week. We've got a special guest coming along. If you'd like to be on The Kick, talk about your business or maybe something that you believe can help businesses grow or work their way out the other side of the pandemic, please contact me via the excitemedia.com.au website, and we'll be able to talk to you then. In the meantime, stay well, and we'll see you next Thursday.